But anyways, why were you interested in this, Vangelis?
So this siege happened during our Greek War of Independence. So this war started in 1821.
1825 or 21?
1821 is where the war started, the rebellion.
Okay.
And the siege in Messalangi happened in 1825. It lasted for a year.
My God.
It's actually one of the more significant events of the war. It is a very famous siege. It's a very famous battle, if you like, and mostly due to what happened there, the people endured. It was very hard for them, but they were adamant about not surrendering.
Not surrendering to who? The Ottomans, right?
Yeah, the Ottomans had. So the rebellion happened. So Greece was under the Ottoman Empire.
Yeah.
And the people rebelled, and some regions were, let's say, liberated. And obviously the Ottomans came back with, they wanted to strike hard and get those regions back. So Messalangi was in a very strategic place. It had a lagoon. It was next to a lagoon.
It looks beautiful, by the way. I'm sure the real estate over there is not cheap, huh?
So yeah, the ships, all the ships that would use this port, they had access to the Ionian Sea, and so it was very well placed. It was well defended by nature. Like, it had some mountains on one side, it had the lagoon on two other sides, so it could be protected relatively easy. Thing is that the lagoon was very, not hollow. It didn't have a lot of depth.
It was shallow.
Shallow. Yeah, shallow is the word. So it was very shallow. So you couldn't get big ships near the city.
Ah, okay.
So they would actually use small boats. They would put cannons on boats sometimes, and especially the people in Messalangi who knew the waters would go on foot within the lagoon because they were so shallow, the waters. But they knew where to, it was deeper, where it was more shallow, where to hide, where to use as good defense points. So they could defend it very well from the sea, from the lagoon part. But they needed a little bit further on the outside, where it will connect to the larger sea. You had all these ships blockading the city, so they didn't have access to food because there were enemy ships there, not letting anyone pass and go through the lagoon.
Now, Vangelis, I played this game, and it's not a difficult game. That's fantastic in the mechanics and the way the rule book is written. And I forget, do we have ships in this game?
No. You focus on the battle in front of the wall, where you have the actual siege taking place.
Yes.
And on the surrounding areas, which give support to the people, to the two sides taking part in the siege, they gain support from other areas near Messalangi. So you don't only fight in front of the walls, the actual trying to get inside the city part. You also fight for control of areas that will give you either new troops, or they will give you more food, supplies, morale, things like that. For example, there was another city, a small one next to Messalangi, which would also have access to the lagoon. It was called Anatolikon at the time, and as long as that remained free, it would boost the morale of the people inside Messalangi. At some point, this other city fell, and this led to a drop in morale for the people inside the city. And also, it led them to, they had a good access of food and supplies coming through that.
And that's a question I was going to ask you, Vangelis. Sorry to cut you off, but being under the Ottoman rule, why were they so well equipped, the Greeks? How was that?
So there were a lot of let's say guerrilla fighters around the time. So who would do raids on on the Ottomans, and then they would go back into hiding on the mountains. And so these were the ones that formed the first, the first people to rebel, and they got a bit more organized, and they decided, with the help of almost at the same time, some other people who were merchants decided to form. We call it Φιλική εταιρεία, like a secret organization that would organize the rebellion.
And this started around the 1820s. That's what you're saying, is that right?
Yeah, right. So they provided the funds. They did a lot of behind the scenes. They organized the people, and it actually started in near so in Greek we call it Moldavlachia, which is an area in on the north near Dunab, the river.
The Dnieper.
Let me tell you exactly, because
and the thing is, Vangelis, I'm looking at the map. Who did the artwork for the map?
So the illustration was done by a Polish artist. His name is Bartek. Let me also give you his name or accuracy. So give me 1 second, since we're going to be editing this, I can take an example too.
Now, it's funny, Vangelis, looking at this is the perfect siege. Like, they had food, there's water, they're protected on all sides, their flanks are protected. That's what I'm trying to say. It's as if they planned this right here, as if they planned that insurrection, because it is an insurrection. They were they were ruled by the Turks, right? The Ottomans. So
Danubian principalities is the way they are called in English. So let me get back to you. So this organization decided to start the rebellion in 1821, and it actually started in the Danubian principalities. That's where the first battles took place, and then it moved in Greece, in Peloponnesos, the southern part of Greece.
Yeah.
So that's where officially, here in Greece, we celebrated on the 25th of March. That's when
I'm going to stop you, Vangelis. So this event is celebrated every year.
It's our Independence Day. So the Greek Independence Day, it's on the 25th of March. That's where we celebrate our independence.
So the Greek independence came from here, Messalangi. Because of Messalangi, the Greeks...
Not only Messalangi, the whole war that started in 1821. But Messalangi was part of that war, so it was one of the most important events. So you have this rebellion starting, and the Greeks are taking back a lot of the areas mostly in southern Greece. So obviously the Sultan doesn't take this very lightly.
I don't think so.
And so you have a lot of famous battles that happened during that period, and so you have Messalangi, which is a very strategic spot. It's very important for both sides. So there were actually 2 more attempts before that to capture the city, and they failed. But they were very short. So at some point, the Sultan says to a very famous Ottoman general, Kütahya, he says to him, "Okay, you bring me Messalangi or your head." So
I see.
Okay, so he gathers a huge force, and he starts going, towards the south to besiege the city, and he arrives on Messalangi on April 1825, and he starts, laying his troops formations in front of the city walls, and he thinks that's going to be an easy task because he has a huge force this time behind him. The other 2 times, the forces were much smaller, and he says, "Okay, this is going to be easy." In the meanwhile, between the 2 sieges, between the second and the third, the people did some defensive works. They built a better wall. It was not a huge thing by any means, but it was better than what they had before. So they were better defended than the previous times. And the engineer that designed the wall is a card in the game, Michael Kokinis. The people inside Messalangi, they see this huge army outside of their city walls. Obviously, they don't want to surrender, and the fighting begins. Now, in front of the wall, there was actually a moat, so it was even harder for the incoming troops to reach the wall. So it was really hard for people to get into the city. But what the Ottoman had was huge numbers. So he would send waves, he would send a lot of people walls trying to do damage. At the same time, there was a lot of cannons. They would use a lot of cannons to do damage either on the walls or within the city. And they also tried to get inside through the lagoon. Okay, so if we cannot get through the wall, we'll try to go the other way around and get from the back, from the lagoon. But the lagoon was very well protected. It was very shallow. The citizens within the Messalangi knew very well all the spots in the lagoon, so they had the ability to defend it very well. And so the Ottomans could not use large ships to get there.
Right, were very too shallow.
Yeah, so that was also very hard as well.
The numbers the Ottomans have, they could have taken over Greece in a shot. Am I wrong?
The thing here is that the Greeks fought for their lives. They fought for their freedom. So they were willing to either die or
exactly. They had nothing to lose.
Win. Yeah. So they weren't afraid of anything. They said, okay, we're going to get our freedom no matter what. So they would fight to the end.
Yeah.
Well, the Ottoman army was vast, but in large part it was mercenaries.
Well, they didn't have any janissaries.
No, most of them was back in Constantinople, Istanbul. That's where they were, and they were the Janitsars, I think it's called. They were mostly protecting the Sultan, and mostly in Asia. They were not so much in Greece. And by the way, most of those troops were actually Greek children. They were taken very young, and they were trained as Ottomans.
With the Greek children, like did they rebel against the Ottomans, against their masters?
Not that I know of, at least. No. In fact, this general that I told you before that came to the city, Kyutakis.
Yeah, I'm trying to look for the card.
He was the son of a Greek Orthodox priest.
What's his name?
Kyutakis.
Not this man here.
No. It's a card with a red flag. It's
red flag. Okay, I got you. Okay, go on. And what's the difference between the first edition and the second edition?
So it's mostly cosmetics. I mean, aesthetics. Like some of the cards are going to have a larger font because there were some comments from the first edition that.
Okay, good.
There were a couple of comments about the map that it was a bit dark on the top side, and there is also a small mistake with the colors of two areas. It doesn't affect the gameplay much. It's only for the setup. But okay, that was something that was missed in the first edition, so this is going to be fixed. Basically, it's going to be some fixes. The rules have some additional clarifications. They explain things based on the feedback we got since the first edition. Some things are going to be explained a little bit better. So these are mostly the changes that you expect to see in the second edition.
And why didn't you do? I'm curious because you just did the battle here, Messalangi. Why didn't you do the Greek independence game? Like, why didn't you incorporate this battle into a larger strategic, type game?
It has to do with how the idea for this game came up. So
is it Yarrow that talked you out of it?
No.
Yarrow talked you out of it, huh?
No. Actually, Yarrow, I showed the full game. I showed it to Yarrow, and so he had nothing to do with the decision about it.
All right.
So the idea for this game came about 10 years ago. actually in March 2011. That's when I got the idea for the game, and we were celebrating the Independence Day, 25th of March, and so I was somewhere with my wife, and we were watching a child's play, a theatrical play that was related to the events of the day, and it happened to be about Messalangi. Okay, so it was a story that was taking place during the siege. It was very interesting and very informative. And at some point, it says that near the end of the siege, there was a very famous Greek hero, Karaiskakis. He was supposed to come and help the city. They were about to do a sortie to leave. They could not stand anymore, so they had planned to leave in the night. The whole city just go out. So at the same time, they were planning for other fighters from the mountain to hit the Ottomans from the back.
From the back,
yeah. So that was their plan, and this very famous Greek hero, he was supposed to come and help in that part, fight from the back. He was a very good fighter. I mean, he's one of the most famous heroes from. And he fell ill 3 days before he fell ill. So when I heard about that during the play, in my mind it was as if somebody played an event card, and he said, "Okay, Karaiskakis falls ill, you can't have him." And that's when it struck me that this was a perfect setting for a game. Like, you had the two very distinct parties. You had this siege. You have the big army trying to get inside the city. You have the people defending it and withstanding it for many months. So I said, okay, this is a game waiting to happen, and I decided to explore it a bit further. I got in touch with the guy that wrote the play that we were watching. So he had done a lot of studying. He knew a lot about the actual history. He had read a lot of books. So I told him my idea, and he agreed to help me. And the thing is that usually when you meet somebody and you say, "Okay, do you want us to do this?" Yeah, let's do it. And then nothing happens.
That's right.
So, a few years went by like this. We would run into each other like every year or something, and you would say, "Yay, we need to do this. Yeah, we need to do it," but nothing would happen. So at some point, he reached out to me and he said, "Look, I just finished my studies. I'm about to go, start looking for a job. This is a period where I have free time, and I think this is a perfect chance. If we don't do it now, we're never going to do it." So okay, I also said, let's do this. I mean, we have to move forward with that. So we started working on the game. He would provide all the historical information. He went in and read almost everything there is about Messalangi and about this siege. So he would provide the historical background. I had my experience as a game designer, and combining the two, we ended up with a game. So I started looking around for publishers who would be interested in the game, and I showed it to Yaro.
How did you come up to meet Yaro? Like, where was he?
So I had seen Phalanx. I had seen some of the games they had produced. At the moment, they were releasing Hannibal, which was an amazing production. And I really liked what they had do. I hadn't played it, but I had seen Magnates, which was also a very nice, a beautiful production. So, okay, Essen was approaching, so I sent an email and I said, okay, my name is Vangelis Bagiartakis, I'm a designer, these are the games that I have made, and there is a design I've made that I would like you to have a look at it. So we set a meeting in Essen, I showed him the game. Yaro is a history buff, he loves history. So
I love talking to that guy. I love talking to him.
So I told him, all that historical part of the game, and he also saw my excitement and everything. So he got the game, he tried it, they liked it a lot, they decided to publish it, and the rest is history.
Fantastic, yeah. No, their production is just fantastic.
Job.
So now this is your living, is creating games.
Yes.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen and children, this is a success story, because I think I've only spoken to another person in this whole world, and his name is Rainer Knizia, who lives off games. Other than having a publishing company, I think, Vangelis, you're the second one that I've ever met that lives off games. There's not many around, man.
Yeah. Okay. To be fair, I don't do work only on my own games. I now do some development work as well. So I may take another project, a game that's about to be published, and I
develop it. Yeah.
I develop it a bit. But yeah, and it's not like I was always completely on my own. As I said, for some of these years, since 2014 and now, I was actually working in a company. So you have the safety of working in a somewhere and getting paid on time. But yeah, it's a big step to be completely on your own. It's not as
no, but I mean, all the what you've learned at that company was indispensable. And it's funny, Vangelis. It makes. I just had a conversation with John Butterfield, the game designer for RAF. You know John Butterfield?
The name rings a bell, but
He did Ambush. He did Ambush with okay, that guy there, the incredible solo designs. And I asked him at one point. I said, "How did like? Could you create any game? How did you make money?" And he just reminded me. He said, "No, I was working for a company, Avalon Hill or Victory Games, and he had a paycheck every week." So basically, that's what you're doing, which is I'm very happy for you, man. Fantastic. So, well, is there anything in Freedom that's going to be completely different? You said no from the first.
So what happens with Freedom? What they've done is that due to the success of the first edition, they're actually looking into having it translated into other languages as well. So they've opened the pre-order page for not only the English version, but for a Greek version as well, done by Phalanx themselves.
Obviously.
German, Spanish, French, and Polish. So they're they're planning on moving along with a lot of languages, and they have set up a pre-ordering page. So if any viewer is interested in having the game in his own language, he can check it out. And it's a great opportunity. They have a pre-ordering system where you need like 200 pre-orders, and as soon as they get them, they move on with production.
In different languages, does anything on the board change when you do the rules for a different language, or you keep the board the same and it's only the rule book that changes?
It depends. No, it's obviously
it's a whole production, eh?
Yeah, obviously you change. In general, it depends on each game. Now, in Freedom, in particular, you have text on the cards. The board has a little bit of text. It has the names of the areas, which, if we're talking about Latin-based alphabet, it can remain the same.
That's right.
But other than that, yeah, it's the cards, the rule books, and some player aids that the players use, for the actions and stuff.
Now, this game, Freedom, and I'm very curious about that. Will you be continuing in this atmosphere, in this time period, and will you be expanding on the Greek, on the Greek, I guess, War of Independence? I guess that's what it is, right? So you're not going to be expanding like in Athens. Something must have been happening, for God's sake.
Yeah, a lot of things happen all over the place.
So is there any way, and I want 10% for this, to do expansions and make it one big thing? Like you have Messalangi, that's what happened here, and at the same time, this is what's happening in Crete and in Lesbos and in whatever other Greek place. No.
So as I said, the inspiration for Freedom was very specific, related to that event. So in the back of my mind, I have that the Greek War of Independence could make a great game.
I think so.
Area control, people battles back and forth. I haven't brought myself up to it yet to take on that design, but I related a bit to Freedom. I have in the back of my mind some other siege games, like, for example, I'd like to do a similar game with Istanbul and the fall of Constantinople, so since a siege happened there as well, and so in the back of my mind I have this idea that I may get up to work at some point.
Yeah.
And talking to Yarrow, there were ideas of other famous sieges as well that we could perhaps explore. So yeah, you have this idea in the back of my mind. So we'll see how it goes.
Okay, because I'm thinking the Ottoman Empire there, Constantinople. I don't know why I can't say that name. Well, basically, the end of the Ottoman was World War I. No.
The Ottoman Empire as we knew it. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So well, look, I really liked Freedom. I hope you expand on it because, well, I just like Greek stuff. That's Greek stuff that's a little bit more obscure, which this is for me. But it's not. It's the Greek independence. It's not obscure if you think about it, man. Are you kidding me? Greece. You know what I'm saying?
This is actually one of the reasons I wanted to do this game, because it had a great backstory. It was fascinating, and the things that I learned while designing the game were, wow, I learned a ton of things that I didn't know. And I was like, okay, I want to make this event known to more people.
Well, you did it to me for sure.
What can I do? I'm not a painter, I'm not a singer, I'm not an artist. I can't do any of those things. I cannot write a novel. But what I can is I can design a game. So I can bring out this game and have people learn about this history through the game. So that's what I did, and I hope that I managed to succeed in that.
Well, I think so. I mean, for me, it's difficult to read. For me, I'm very I can't concentrate for a long period of time. As you've seen, how many times I've changed subject with this interview, and I'm sorry. I learned that, and this was great. God, I even forgot what I was gonna say. Go ahead.
I think with Messalangi, the fun part, that not fun, but the interesting part, is that the Greek side actually lost in the siege in a way. So, as I said, after like 12 months, they couldn't stand it any longer, and they decided to do this sortie to leave out of the city during the night. But they got betrayed, and the Ottomans were expecting them. They knew everything about it. So what ended up happening was a massacre. I mean, people were slaughtered as they were coming out. Very few survived, and so you also have actions of a lot of sacrifice. You have people staying back with their loved ones to protect them, and basically dying next to them. All the people that were sick or that were very elderly, they were left inside the city. And when the Ottomans came, they blew themselves up to take them with them. So
you mean hold on? Who, the Ottomans blew themselves up, or the sick?
No, the Greeks. The
The
elderly and the sick. They were gathered in a building, and when the Ottomans came, they blew everything up.
Yeah.
So you have all these things, and so it ended in a massacre. I mean, it was a slaughter for the Greeks. So
who was the traitor? Was he Greek?
I think so. I don't think his name has been saved. I mean, like, the plan was betrayed. That's what we know.
Okay.
And the thing is that technically the Ottomans won, but the whole thing that happened and the way that it ended, and the fact that they had managed to survive for that long, was very important, because it turned the tide in all over Europe towards Greece. I mean, people were very sympathetic to Greece.
Okay.
And the big powers of that time decided to help Greece, and so that led to another very famous battle at Navarino, the Battle of Navarino, where Russians and English and French ships came and won against the Ottoman fleet.
Wow, look at that.
That was a devastating loss for the Ottomans, and basically that was what led to the end of the war and to the declaration of independence of Greece.
Is that amazing how allies change during eras, eh? The allies with the Russians and all that. If we had that now, anyways. Vangelis, what's future projects?
Okay, so there are two important projects that I'm working on right now. So one is going to be going on Kickstarter in about 2 months from now.
This is a Phalanx?
This one, no. The other one is from Phalanx, the other project I'll talk to you about. So the first one is called Hegemony, and it's also a heavy game, a bit heavy, It's a politico-economic, asymmetric, card-driven game where you have the various classes within society trying to pursue their agenda. So you have one player being the capitalist class, another player is the working class, the middle class, and the state itself.
And this is in a modern setting?
In a modern setting, you have actual politics like, labor market or taxation or welfare state, fiscal policy, and people try to change these policies to pursue their own agenda. Like the capitalist wants lower wages, lower taxation. The working class is fighting to get free healthcare. You have tariffs, you have immigration, a lot of things combining. It's a very interesting project, and it also helps you understand modern politics a bit better, to understand how society works and how changes in one thing affect the other. It's it's an ambitious project, but I think we've done a good job. And
this game is finished now, like at the printers type thing?
No, it's actually in the final stages of development. So most of the design has been completed. So since it's asymmetric, its faction plays completely different. There's a lot of testing going in, adjustments, balancing, making sure that everything works nice.
And what about the Phalanx?
So for Phalanx, I'm working on a game called Suffrage, which is it has to do with the rights to the woman's right to vote.
And let me stop you there for a second. Why the suffrage now? Is there a reason why suffrage now?
2020 was a 100th year anniversary from when the suffrage in US at least.
Okay, thank you. That's why.
Amendment passed.
Okay. Thank you very much, Efaristo. And man, do you plan on going to any conventions in the States when everything is back to normal?
And then that changed. So I don't know yet if everything goes back to normal. At some point, I really look forward to visiting the States and one of the big fairs over there. So
yeah,
I would be very happy to meet you there if I ever get a chance.
Well, speak to Yarrow there so we can pay your way all the way over there. And what I was saying, Vangelis, okay. Thank you very much, man. Funny story.
Thank you as well. It was a blast.
Ciao.
Thank you. Ciao.